I get it, you're scrolling through a dozen NAS options, wondering if you'll end up spending a weekend wrestling with setup only to find the unit can't keep up with your family's photo library or your home office's file sharing needs. You've probably heard the hype about 2.5 GBE and NVMe cache and are thinking, sounds fast, but is it worth the extra cache? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through the real-world experience of the QNAP TS6648 GUS so you can decide whether it's the right fit before you hit that buy button. First off, the TS664 is a 6-bay desktop NAS that ships without drives. That's a double-edged sword. On the plus side, you get the freedom to choose the exact mix of HDDs and SSDs that matches your budget and storage goals. On the downside, you have to factor in the cost of the drives themselves, which can push the total outlay well over $1,000 if you go for high-capacity 4 TB or 8 TB disks. The unit's rating sits at 4.1 out of 5 stars from 289 reviewers, which tells me most owners are happy, but there's a small chunk who ran into issues they didn't expect. What makes the TS664 stand out is the dual 2.5 GBE ports. Most consumer NAS boxes stick with a single 1 GBE connection, which caps transfer speeds at about 120 megabytes per second in real life. With two 2.5 GBE ports, you can either aggregate them for up to roughly 250 megabytes per second or drop one to 1 GBE for older devices while keeping the other on the faster lane. In practice, that means if you're moving a large folder of 4K video clips from your editing workstation to the NAS, you'll see the transfer finish in half the time compared to a typical 1 GBE box. For a family of 4 who regularly backs up laptops, phones, and a shared media folder, that speed difference translates to less waiting and more time watching movies on the couch. The other performance booster is the pair of M.2 PCIe Gen 32 NVMe slots. You can install a modest 250 GB SSD as a read-write cache, and the NAS will automatically accelerate frequently accessed files. I've seen people use those slots for a dedicated SSD storage pool, essentially turning the unit into a hybrid system where the SSD handles hot data while the HDD bays hold the bulk of the library. The benefit is most noticeable when you're streaming multiple 4K streams to different devices in the house. The cache smooths out the load and prevents hiccups. Keep in mind, though, the cache only speeds up data that fits on the SSD, so it's not a magic fix for huge raw video files that exceed the SSD's capacity. From a daily usability standpoint, the QTS operating system feels polished enough that you don't need to be an IT specialist to get it running. The initial wizard walks you through RAID configuration, user permissions, and setting up the network. I tried a RAID 5 layout with 4 6TB drives, leaving 2 bays empty for future expansion. The setup completed in under 10 minutes, and the NAS immediately presented itself on the network as a shared drive. One practical strength is the multiple USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports, which can reach up to 10 gigabits per second in theory. I used one of those ports to connect an external SSD for quick file imports from a DSLR camera, and the transfer speed was noticeably faster than pulling the cards directly into my laptop over Wi-Fi. Now, let's talk about the trade-offs that often get glossed over in marketing copy. The Intel Celeron N5105 quad-core processor is solid for most file-serving tasks, but it's not a powerhouse for heavy transcoding. If your workflow includes running Plex to stream 4K video to a phone while simultaneously serving a 1080p stream to a smart TV, the CPU can become a bottleneck. The unit does support hardware-accelerated transcoding, but the Celeron's limited GPU means you'll hit the ceiling faster than with a higher-end Intel Xeon or AMD Ryzen chip. So, if you plan to run a media server that constantly converts formats on the fly, you might want to look at a model with a stronger processor. Another subtle limitation is the lack of built-in hot swap drive bays. You can replace drives while the NAS is powered, but you have to manually pull the trays out and reinsert them, which isn't as seamless as some enterprise-grade units that let you slide drives in and out without opening the chassis. For most home users this isn't a deal-breaker, but if you run a small office where drives get swapped frequently for backups or testing, the extra steps can add friction. Who should actually consider buying the TS664? If you're a power user with a growing media collection, a remote working team that needs fast internal file sharing, or a hobbyist who wants the flexibility to mix HDD capacity with an SSD cache, this box hits a sweet spot. The dual 2.5 GBE ports give you future-proof networking without having to upgrade your whole router right now, and the 6 bays provide